Well, good afternoon. My name is Zenovia Harris. I have the pleasure of serving as the Chief Executive Officer for the Kent Chamber of Commerce. So welcome to our Safety and Security Luncheon. This is our annual luncheon that we have, an event that is sponsored by our government affairs team. This is a luncheon that we thought is very important. As I'm going out into community, one of the conversations we're having in community is, what about safety? What is going on in Kent? Right? And so we developed this safety and security luncheon maybe 3 years ago, Carmen, maybe 3 years ago, and really excited to see you all here to ask those questions to our leaders that are here in the community, making sure that we are safe. So we'll be talking physical security as well as cybersecurity. So alrighty, so this event is being sponsored by South King Media and I Love Kent. It is being recorded. We are not live on Facebook, I don't believe, today, but we are recorded and it will be posted on our YouTube page. So thank you so much to South King Media for that. We also have our wonderful Andrew Crane here with Crane Photography taking our stills. Yes, they like you, Andrew. So it is my absolute pleasure to be able to introduce our keynote today. Like I said, we take at the Chamber Security very seriously. And it is very important for us that we at all times are putting folks in front of you that are experts in the field, people who not only have the understanding, but also the lived experience. There's something to be said about lived experiencing and understanding what that looks like. So I am going to introduce our keynote speaker today. We are going to be engaging with Carmen Goers, who is the former Chief of Police for the Seattle Police Department and current consultant at 21CP Solutions. She is a nationally recognized leader in public safety, security, and crisis management. She recently served as the Director of Global Security and Risk Operations at Microsoft, where she oversaw enterprise-wide efforts to safeguard people, assets, and operations against global threats. During her 28-year career at SPD, she became the first African-American woman to lead the department, implementing innovative community engagement strategies, diversity hiring initiatives, and critical first responder protocols during COVID-19. A decorated citizen, U.S. Army veteran, and award-winning author of Black and Blue, Lessons on Leadership, Breaking Barriers, and Racial Reconciliation, Best has been honored with numerous national awards for leadership, ethics, and community service, and is a sought-after, I'll say that again, a sought-after keynote speaker and NBC News contributor on leadership, safety, and security. Help me welcome Ms. Carmen Goers.
So yeah, I'm here today to talk to you more at a philosophical level about, the change management and technology and how to keep people safe and how you stay in the game. So that is what I'd like to talk to you about today. And then after, I know there'll be a panel discussion in which you can talk to your chief and other panelists that will be there. So I'm excited to be here. I want to thank the Kent Chamber of Commerce. I want to thank you personally, Zenovia, for inviting me here. I appreciate you. And Carmen, it was a pleasure to meet you and what you're doing with government affairs. Very exciting. All of it is just super exciting. So my background, Zenovia told you a little bit, but I basically have been 40 years between the military, law enforcement, public safety, policing, now Microsoft, and then now as a consultant. So 40 years in the game of working on security and change management, of dealing with people and processes and how we move things forward. At Microsoft, she mentioned I was a director of global security risk operations. I can't tell you the scope of work it was just huge, but suffice it to say that we operate in 190 countries with over 800 facilities. There's a lot of work to be done. And that's just for the physical security piece where I work. There's also the cybersecurity side as well as the data center. So it's a huge operation. There's a lot of cross-coordination because, as you know, if your building isn't safe, then you're subject to more cyber attacks. If your cyber isn't safe, your buildings are subject to attack. And so all of these things have to interact with each other. So I just want to make sure that, I talked about what my area of expertise was. The cyber people would go crazy if I started talking about their area, but that was what my role was there. And it's really important to understand how to go through change management as things happen. I'm going to start with the story from policing. When I started in policing and law enforcement many years ago, my equipment was this. I had a revolver with a wooden handle. I had a baton and a pair of handcuffs. That was our toolkit. We techie people, that was our stack. That's how we did things. That's how we got things done at that time. And since that time, when you think about it, since that time, we fast forward, we have tasers, body-worn cameras, artificial intelligence, augmented reality, drones as first responder. It's a different world now. The landscape has changed, and it's changed immensely. And we went from handwriting reports, and I'm sure, Chief, you can remember those days when you wrote down the report, turned it in, to now we have everything is electronic. We have predictive analysis, and we have automated dashboards. So, for example, when I was at Microsoft, or even another police department, if I wanted to know how much training somebody had, I didn't go to a paper file. I hit a button. It told me when they logged on to training, how long that training was, when they logged off, what scores they had on the testing, who was in compliance and who was not. That was that quick. The same thing in law enforcement. I could sit down and I can say, when was force used, where was it used, how often, where, right down to the officer, and do comparative analysis. A completely different world. And so we have to learn as managers how to manage that, how to manage change in the workplace as things change. I'll tell you a little story, because I love to tell stories. So when I was a sergeant, they were just starting with the tasers, and we were responding to a man with a sword. Unfortunately, not an unusual call in Seattle, but we were responding to a man with a sword. Everybody rushes in, and he was between two buildings, and officers kind of did a semicircle around him, and I'm there with another supervisor, so I'm thinking all these thoughts. While I'm very calm in my presentation, trust me, on the inside, the heart is beating quickly. And I'm thinking, okay, I don't want crossfire in case something happens. We obviously want to protect this person, but we also have to protect ourselves and the public. And how are we going to set this up? And looking at the other supervisor, we're kind of, okay, let's move around to a V so there's no crossfire, and all this stuff is going through our head. And in comes this guy, sort of a, knight in shining armor officer. His last name was Ward, Officer Ward. And he comes up, Sarge. He goes, on taser train, I think I can use the taser. He hadn't super at any point. And I'm like, oh, I don't know about that. He goes, no, I think I can. I said, okay. So he comes in, and he gets the right angle and he uses the taser. Boom, guy goes down, wall rush in, kick off the sword, you take him out, grab him up, off to the hospital. Things are great. And that is what sold her on tasers. So since that time, we've had, almost every agency has tasers now. I mean, it's a commonplace thing, but I don't know when it started. There was no buy-in until we were able to show people, hey, this is a benefit. This is helping folks, right? And it's the same thing with technology today and how it's used in the workplace and how we can help. We have a lesson that we can learn that change is possible through access. So my theme here is going to be the challenge of change. Because change is constant and it's relentless. I know you've all heard the saying, change is constant, and all that, but it really is constant. Things are changing all the time, and we have to be able to manage it. So the World Economic Council said that there will be 85 million jobs. I want to get this right. 85 million jobs lost due to AI. 85 million across the globe. Sounds kind of scary. But they also said there's a potential for 97 million jobs to be created if we go on to this. And I say this because it's new and it's different. And even though it's not a taser, it's the same concept. It's something new that if we get used to it, if we buy in, and if we manage that change, we can do a good job with it. And that's the paradox of technology. It can elevate and bring things together and make things wonderful, but if we're not careful, it can also leave a lot of people behind. And so we want to make sure that we're managing all of that. So the question is, with all of you business owners and leaders, how can we prepare workers for a new role in society? How do we get that 97 million jobs that are going to be created to the people that we want to have those jobs? How do we make them ready? Because we have to lead, and we have to lead with vision and not fear. You have to be able to see what's coming, look around the corner, and make sure that you're training people and telling them what's happening. And you can't be afraid of the change. And it's so easy to be afraid of things that are new and different, but we have to push people forward so that we're leading with vision and not fears. I gave the example of the tasers. I'll also say body-worn cameras. I know we have a security person who just spoke. Do you have people wearing that? Do you have people, are they wearing body-worn cameras? Was the actually a person? Yeah. The next bug. Yeah, kudos. Good for you. So I can remember when body-worn cameras was a new thing, right? And for law enforcement, and there were so many lawsuits and people fighting, and they didn't want people, the officers didn't want, people, listening to what they were saying. And, and community members didn't want these cameras in the halls and then on these stops and whatnot. And so when it first happened, it was a big deal. It was changed. And and a lot of people didn't want to do it. But now that we have it, almost every agency has body-worn cameras across the country. Guess what? Use of force complaints are down almost 50%, right? Everybody's being held more accountable. Because now the officers coming, the camera's on you. The officers coming, the camera hunted, right? And so it's a good thing in the end. And now they moved it to the public sector. I guess the private sector, actually. The private sector, where now, your guards and guarding will have body-worn cameras. So all of these changes are good things. We have to embrace the technology and train people, like I'm sure you're doing, on how to use it, what's appropriate, that sort of thing. So staying in the game as business owners, as managers, and as leaders, I think takes 3 key components. The first one is you have to lead with vision. You have to make sure that you're looking out ahead and seeing what's happening, and you can't be afraid of change or telling people or training. And you have to engage in continuous improvement and innovation. Continuous improvement and innovation. If you're not improving and moving forward, you are falling behind. There's no such thing as stagnant, because things are going, and they're going to be the light ahead of you. So you have to engage in that. You have to make sure that your people are aware of that. And then finally, you have to humanize change. You have to work with people. You have to get them involved. You have to say, I respect your privacy rights. Sure, we're here to be inclusive. That is a real key component of change, because everyone likes, dinosaurs, for example. Amazing. You go to the Family Museum, dinosaurs are a big deal. But guess what else? Dinosaurs are extinct, right? So you have to keep moving forward and evolving and changing, or you will become a dinosaur, and nobody wants that. So leading with vision, what does that mean? Leading with vision. So when you're using AI and analytics, I know we have some other people in here who are cyber folks. It means that you are trying to improve outcomes. You're not trying to replace people. You're trying to improve outcomes. So you need to be thinking, how can we make them better, more efficient, more safe? For example, I know that there's always concerns about, some sort of bias, implicit or explicit, and maybe how they can report it. You can take that report to AI, and it can take any kind of thing that might trigger a bias, a name, an address, something out of the report, so that people are just dealing with the facts as they are. You wouldn't be able to tell, where it was or how it happened, other than being the facts of the situation. It's a better outcome because it's not tainted. We all have biases. I'm sorry, but we all do. So it's not tainted by anyone's perception and anything. And that is how technology can help you in that regard. And I would say that there are 5 steps to making sure that we have those things in place to lead with vision. First, update policies and procedures, or if you're in the private sector, governance, you have to have these things in place. It needs to be, I would say, written down when we don't write things anymore. It needs to be documented somewhere so that people can access it and know how to get to it. Secondly, we have to have ongoing maintenance. I just mentioned continuous improvement and innovation. Ongoing, things are changing constantly. You're not updating constantly and taking a look at it. You're just pulling out, or so to speak, and dusting it off. Too late. You have to have continuous maintenance. Then you have to have training. adaptive training. Everyone takes in information differently. So you have to have things that are auditory or visual or hands-on. And I know that you can speak to this too, Chief. That's how we train cops. They don't all take in information the same way. So we tell them what to do. We show them what to do. We take them through, we test them, and we do that routinely. And we do that at Microsoft too. I know we have another Microsoft person here, and they can attest to the fact that those trainings come in all the time. We're like, I'm training them this already. But we had to do that consistently and continually to keep our skills up. And finally, you have to have accountability. You have to hold everyone accountable to your governance, to your rules, to your thing, what you taught us, what you've shown us. And that goes from the C-suite to the frontline worker. So the rules don't apply differently. There has to be procedural justice. They don't apply differently because you've got VP by your name for the person who's on the front line. Everybody has to abide by the governance, the rules, and the philosophy of the company. And then you have to have the continuous learning piece. That means that you have to make sure that people are staying up to date with everything. There's research that's shown that after 5 years, your skill set is, if not completely changed, it will need to be completely changed because things change. There's a 5-year cycle. What we did 5 years ago, they're not doing it today. Like things have changed. And just think about, wherever you are, I don't even know what everybody's business is, but think about where you were 5 years ago. Are you still operating the same today? Anybody? Yeah, I hope no hand goes up because that's going to be embarrassing for you. Right, so you have to continuously train and get people ready. And that goes for every field, whether you're a business owner, whether you're an officer, whether you are in healthcare or finance or whatever it is, whether you're a real estate agent, you have to keep your skills up and keep up with the time. Things are changing constantly. And also, you have to humanize the change, which I talked about earlier. And that means that the tools that we use have to serve the people. Everything is about people. So everything that you bring into effect has to serve the people. You have to have privacy, you have to have fairness, you have to have equity, you have to have inclusion, you have to have transparency. I know we have elected officials in here, and I understand that. Everything you do has to be transparent. That's why they have public disclosure and the FOIA and all those other things, so that we can bring people in and get people invested in what we're doing. Now, let me give you a personal reflection and wrap up shortly here. But from the time that I worked on the streets and patrol to being in all these corporate boardrooms, really all across the country, really all across the world in many cases, I've learned a lesson about how we manage things, how we manage people, and how we move through the chain. And that is that you can't let your legacy limit you. We can't let your legacy limit you. You have to ask consistently and continually, are we evolving? Are we changing? Are we adding candidates? Because we need them. What are we doing to make things better? How are we empowering our people to be successful? And if they fail, to fail fast. Right? To fail will be failure, fail fast, and move on to the next thing. Are we leading with vision? Because right now, there's technology out there that can sense your emotion. Literally, it can sense your emotion and say, this person is angry or sad or whatever the case may be. There's predictive analytics that can tell you, based on what we have here, this situation may change because of the information that we have. And there's quantum computing. These aren't really future things. They're happening right now. And so we have to be looking up and making sure that we're staying on top of what is happening in technology. And I'll close repeating some things, changing concept. There's a saying that says, no person is in the same river twice. Anybody heard that? Yeah, because the river is constantly flowing and changing, and the person is constantly changing. So you'll never be the same in the same river twice. That doesn't happen. So you have to know that things are changing and moving quickly, and you need to stay up with the flow. That the greatest part of leadership is adaptability. That you have to make sure your people are able to adapt, have the right training, have the right skill set. It's your responsibility if you're a leader. And one of my mentors, his name is Chuck Landing. He's actually one of the consultants for 21st Century Policing, but he's been a mentor for many years. He always would say, there is a reason that your windshield is bigger than your rearview mirror. Because as a leader, you're looking out. You're looking on the horizon. You're seeing what's coming. You take a glance back to see where you've been, but that's what you should be doing. Looking out to the future. Take care of your folks. Stay curious. Stay engaged. Make sure you involve the human aspect to everything that you're doing. And remember that every change is an opportunity. And I'll close on that note. Thank you.
All right. Well, I'm Carmen Goers. This is the Day of Carmen's. I'm so excited. Don't often get two of us in the room together. And it's my pleasure to be here. As was mentioned earlier by our sponsor, Kent Chamber keeps growing and growing, and we grow based on the needs that we hear from our members and the things that we're seeing in community. And so we bring that. And a place to do that would be government affairs. And so our job at government affairs, our function really, is to bring those issues to our legislature, to our local elected officials, so they're aware of what we need and what we're looking to do, and then we can be part of the solution and have a relationship and build on that. So in that vein, I'm not going to start with you, Chief.
Yeah.
We're gonna let you guys warm up with love. But I really want to start with our Puget Town Fire Deputy Chief, Mark Jones, and I'm gonna give you each a moment to just introduce yourselves and tell everyone who you are, how you got to where you are, and the topic you want to bring forward today.
Hey, my name is Mark Jones, and as of that writing, I was a deputy chief. I'm actually your new fire chief.
Congratulations.
2 weeks ago. So I'm pretty excited about that. We have a huge leadership turnover in our organization. So we're going to promote 11 chief officers next month, which when I started, we didn't even have 11 chief officers. I've been in the fire service for 34 years. During that, I actually dabbled as a Kent police officer for about 8 of those years till I came back to the right side. I started in 1991 as a City of Kent volunteer firefighter. I am the first legacy Kent fire chief. I'm also a local kid. I graduated from Kentwood High School.
A little applause there.
At least one. Very new school. I won't say when I graduated, but it was a very new school when I graduated. You may not know, Puget Sound Fire started as the City of Kent Fire Department, and then we became a regional fire authority, which allowed us to create our own taxing authority. We're now made up of Kent, Covington, Maple Valley, SeaTac, recently Tukwila, and some smaller fire districts. So when I started, we had 7 stations. We now have 17 fire stations. In 2026, we'll have over 500 employees. So we've grown quite a bit, and it's been a very interesting transition seeing us grow from a smaller city fire department now to this big regional partner. And so it's an exciting time in the fire service, and we're changing and adapting as we go. We have seen that community outreach and community services can really be accomplished with call reduction and addressing emergency response in terms of mental health and in terms of services needed. We are the founding agency for FD Cares program, which has grown regionally, but also nationally. There's over 50 FD Cares programs in the state of Washington, and we pair a social worker and a nurse in a pickup truck, and they handle what we call low acuity calls. So we try to reduce the burden on the 911 system by being proactive in our community. That allows our fire companies to respond to fires and larger EMS calls, to be in service when the big incidents happen. But we're able to address the bigger need of the community, which is sometimes people just need to be connected to services. They need to know who to call, when to call, and we're working very hard to lower the impact in our hospitals by keeping people at home and addressing their needs instead of having them go into the hospital and clog up emergency rooms and doctor visits. So it's an exciting time in the fire service because we're learning and growing and shaping the region as we do it.
Thank you. And it sounds like to the point of the change, you're not just fire. And I know some people in the room have done drive-alongs with Kent PD. Any hands? I'm sure Senator. And so when I was on my drive-along, they reluctantly says they're not first responders. Watch. And as we pull in, as Kent PD pulled in, fire was a block up, waiting for them to come through. So we'll give them a little bit of space. Is that good, Chief?
Sure.
I love messing with Chief Padilla. But we have Raj Sidhu, who's our cybersecurity professional from inTech, and you want to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Carmen. My name is Raj Sidhu. I'm the founder and president of inTech Consulting. We are a Kent-based IT services business that provides services to other businesses, including cybersecurity. So you're probably wondering what I'm doing, sitting next to the fire chief and the police chief. Well, there's at the end of this year, it's projected that we will have spent about $11 trillion worldwide trying to counter cybercrime. And in the next 4 years, so by 2029, that number is supposed to be up towards $16 trillion. If you look at how much money if it was a country, that would be the third largest economy in the world. So if you think about what's happening with cybercrime, a lot of times all the stats that I'm going to give you today come from a Verizon study. It's an annual study that they do. They put out, and it's basically all about cybercrime. So you can Google it afterwards, but most of my stats should check out. It's on average, it takes about 6 months for a company or an individual to know that they've been compromised, meaning that somebody was in your systems for 6 months mining your data. So imagine if that is your business, or your home, we take so many efforts to go in and shut the windows, lock everything, put ADT and whatever else, cameras and all that. But what we do at the end of the day with our data that belongs to our business is almost nothing. About 20% of the folks in this room, statistically speaking, about 20% of you have the actual protections in place. So meaning that you have a username and a password, and then usually a third or some other device, so a multi-factor, some code that you enter to log into some critical device. Only 20% of you are actually doing that. So 80% of you are at the risk of being compromised, being breached, either personally or through your business. The sad part is we recycle passwords. If you don't know what that means, it's basically you're using the same password for everything. And you think you're smart because you add a 1 or a 2 at the end, or you change it to a $sign instead of an S. Well, the bad actors know all that. It doesn't take very long for us to crack, for the bad actors to crack passwords. But when we are given that challenge, it takes us about 30 seconds to get into your laptop or your desktop. So I'm here to make sure that you are aware, these challenges, and it's like Chief Carmen mentioned earlier about AI. We're combating AI as we speak. The cat and mouse game has just been put on steroids. So the bad guys are a couple of years ahead of us, and we're just constantly chasing their tails. So if there's anything that I can tell you, and this goes, again, thanks to Chief Carmen, training is the most important thing that you can do for your employees. So, making people aware that these things happen, this exists, that is half of the battle. So, excited about these conversations. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I will tell you, so I'm in financial services, and we moved from, I think, a minimum of an 8-digit to 15-digit password. And we're like, I think 22. And we're like, oh my good Lord, how are we supposed to remember this? And this is the reason why, is you can easily crack your codes. And now we're moving to statements as opposed to words for that as well. And then, so that makes our next introduction a little bit lighter, right? So that we've already been scared about our cybersecurity. But we have Chief Padilla. Here you go. I'll give you some time to introduce yourself and your topics you want to give to us.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. It's good to see so many familiar faces. I'm going to humble brag to start. So, two things. First, Carmen Best, former chief of Seattle, when it was Lieutenant Padilla and Lieutenant Best. I don't know if you remember this. I had just graduated from the FBI National Academy. It's basically it's an executive command college for up rising commanders in law enforcement across the nation. And when you graduate, the responsibility used to be that you met with the incoming person going to the FBI Academy to kind of school them up and give them the scoop on what they could expect and prepare for. And I got to meet Carmen Best. I remember leaving that Starbucks going, that woman's going to go places. And boy, were we right. So there's one humble brag. And then the other one, we got any Star Wars fans in the room? Okay. So my relationship with Chief Jones is kind of like Obi-Wan and Darth Vader. I best as I could to lead him down the right path as his academy instructor and stay with the rebellion. He went to the evil empire and now works for the firefighter starter. So just a couple humble brags there. So on a serious note, I think if you, for those of you who were here last year, I got to talk about some good news for the first time in a long time. And what I talked about was that our crime numbers were trending in the right direction. And I was very careful, and I'll be very careful today to say that is not a declaration of victory, right? It is, there is still far too much crime and victimization going on, and we've got a lot of work to do, and we're committed to staying on that. But what I've learned in 34 years is you have to take time to appreciate some of the small wins. And you have to acknowledge when momentum is going the right way. And right now in Washington State, in King County, and in particular in Kent, our numbers are trending in the right direction. We are reducing crime. We have a long ways to go, all right? And we saw, some of you may have seen the publications from the State Sheriffs and Chiefs Association using the FBI data that shows that we are down significantly in many categories. Predominantly, violent crime is one of the things we're really watching. Again, we have lots of work. And when I left the meeting last time, I said, my prediction is that the 2025 numbers will beat the 2024 numbers for Kent. And what we know is that we were able to get back to 2019 levels with our 2024 stats, which is pre-pandemic, pre-George Floyd, pre-everything. And we are beating those numbers right now on par of 30 to 50% in all those categories. Now we're only halfway through the year, right? Where we got a lot of ways to go. So my message on that is, because I got hit up right away, like, how is this occurring? And I would love for there to be an academic study of this, because I think we have a great opportunity to look at what we have learned over the past 5 years. What were the changes that were made? What did we do with our laws? What did we do in terms of how we looked at public safety? What worked, what didn't work, and what do we need to not repeat in terms of mistakes from the past, right? And so I think we've got a great opportunity in front of us. With that, you know, when I was asked, why is it that I think as a chief that our numbers are good, I started off with the most paramount thing. It's people. The women and men that work for the Kent Police Department are amazing. We hire amazing, exceptional people, and they do an incredible job, a very difficult job. And so what I know as your chief is that when we empower and support law enforcement, they produce incredible results for us. They do incredible things. They're not infallible and they're not perfect, but give them the opportunity and they will do the job. And that's number one. Number two, having enough law enforcement officers to do the work is a vital component to public safety. One of the major shifts from 3-4 years ago to now is that most of your law enforcement departments have caught up and closed some of the gap in their vacancies with their police departments. We are significantly more staffed per capita now than we were back then. That makes a difference, okay? That's a huge difference. Now, those of you who have heard me speak at any point in the last 7 years know what I'm about to say. We are still at the bottom of the state, we're bottom of the country in the number of officers per capita. And if you look at the numbers, our recovery from the record high crimes, all the nation seems to be turning in the right direction. That's great. Washington State lags behind a lot of the other major cities in terms of how fast we're recovering. And I think it has a lot to do. It's not the only piece of the puzzle, but we don't have enough men and women to do this job. We can only do so much. And it keeps us in a reactive state to crime versus being into a intervention, preventative mode that we all want to see. When you've walked by, seen a problem, open drug use on let's say a bus shelter or something, it's really great that we ask you to call 911. My vision for public safety is you won't have to do that, because within a few minutes, maybe half an hour, a police officer is going to come by and intervene and do the right thing, deliver services, get the person treatment, and enforce the law if that's what the appropriate outcome is. Okay, so that matters. Law enforcement collaboration and use of technology right now, particularly in this region, is another contributing factor. It's better than it's ever been. And I'm going to say this, accountability works. Okay. What we're seeing and what we know historically is that a very few percentage of people actually commit crime. And what has happened is those that chronic offenders, you guys remember when we talked about the serial burglary, the serial robberies and the homicides, and how they were regional, and we were going tri-county to try and affect accountability. Now, all of those crime groups have committed enough crime to where the system is engaged and they are incarcerated. Okay? They are incarcerated. You guys remember the Kia Boys? There's other, I can name a ton of them. There's a group called No Remorse. There's a group called F the Police. They were committing 6, 7 robberies a day. They're all in jail right now. And what do you think our robberies and shooting numbers look like? They plummet. So I want to make sure that I'm being clear. Accountability does work. Now, it won't work forever, but it works. And the last thing is, we've really gotten away from the either or conversation, and I'm very happy about that. And the either or conversation is that we were for a long time speaking about anything but incarceration, anything but accountability, anything but more police officers. And while it was very noble to go and say, let's do services, we all agreed with that. Let's help with substance use disorder. Let's help with unhoused people. Let's look at this. Let's bring in co-responder teams, and let's really meet people's needs. That was a good change. But what we missed the boat was we decided to have one or the other. I'm very pleased to see that the conversations that I'm having at the governmental levels are a yes and conversation. Yes, we need services. Yes, we need treatment. Yes, we need to help people, and we have to enforce the law. All three of those components of intervention, prevention, and enforcement work together to build about the best results for public safety. And that's what we've seen. And if you ask me, that's why we're seeing the change in our numbers. So thank you.
Thank you, Chief Padilla. I'm going to stay with you for the next question. Because over the years, we've talked about how do we get more law enforcement? How do we get more support? Some of it's funding, some of it's staffing. It takes time to get someone through the academy and to on board to the police academy. So I want to talk about the things that we can do. And so with the changing times, there's a role that data plays in how the department allocates resources and for business district safety. How can we as business owners contribute to that process? And what information do you need from us? You spoke about calling things in. And sometimes I feel like we call it in, but nothing seems to change. But it's about accumulating the data. Can you speak to that and how we as a business community can work and help solve some of the problems in our specific community areas, business community areas?
Yeah, great question. And I appreciate it. How many of you in the room are not calling on everything because you've kind of been worn down? It's okay if you are, because I am too, just in case you're wondering. We realize in our data that there is a certain percentage, sometimes higher or lower, where people just won't report what's going on for a multitude of reasons, not the least of which is you run businesses and you're extremely busy, and waiting around for a police officer to show up for half an hour, that takes time, right? Or maybe you think that nothing's going to get done, right? Multitude of things. That data set is really important for us. And what I like to tell people is call and be patient, or call and know that even if we don't address the individual maybe that you called about then, That data goes into a system where we track. Chief Best, I'm going to call you Chief because that's how I know you. Chief Best said it. We use data, predictive analytics, AI, and other components, other technology to start really looking at where we have problems, emerging problems, and where we need to put resources to. If you've called 10 times, that's 10 points of data that we've got. We track that on, we call our heat maps. You guys are all probably very familiar with that. And because we do have limited resources, it helps me prioritize where we're going to put resources and what type of resources. Because not every answer is we need more police officers. Maybe I need to dispatch my code enforcement team to go help someone get their property up to speed so it's not creating crime. Maybe I need to dispatch my neighborhood response team so we can talk about some of the crime prevention things that they could be doing to help them. So it's a multitude of things. So if you ever think that your 911 call doesn't do anything, it may not have got the results you wanted in the moment in time that you called, but I assure you we are using that data for the ongoing greater approach to public safety. So my message is please call and be patient.
Thank you. Raj, we're going to move down back to you. And for our business owners, we talked earlier, business leaders, we talked, what's some affordable cybersecurity tools or practices? We talked about passwords. Is there something, or one or two other, I say tips and tricks that can really assist in minimizing the risk?
You mentioned passwords earlier, Carmen. I think there's a misunderstanding or a misconception that your passwords are keeping you safe.
Jesus.
Well, we do an assessment whenever we bring a company on, and we usually ask for the key employees. So it's the CEO, usually the controller, the CFO, finance folks. And then what we do is we run a scan on the dark web to see what they've got going on. So the dark web, for those of you that don't know, Chief, don't listen. If you had to buy drugs, at some point, hypothetically, you would go to a dark alley in Seattle. We wouldn't do that in Kent, but you would buy them from some guy or gal. But you could buy not just drugs. You could buy, a green card. You could buy a driver's license, fake ID, whatever you needed. Well, that has it's shifted to the internet. So there's a dark side of the internet called the dark web. So chances are that if you used your email and your password for a Home Depot account or I don't even know what chef.com, LinkedIn, Facebook, any service that has an email address that you put in with a password, chances are they were breached. So that data was compromised, and that data is being sold on the dark web. So most of the time when we pick the key employees, the CEO, the CFO, whoever, most of the time we can tell them what their current password is without them telling us what it is. Or I can get pretty close. When we put them up on our slides, you could see that, I don't need to ask them if they know those passwords. We know what their passwords are. So your passwords are essentially useless. Do not think that they're protecting you from anything. So always use a multi-factor authentication for any service. And the comment I made earlier about you not knowing for 6 months that somebody was in your email or in your systems, that's really critical, because what these guys are doing, the bad actors, what they do is they're not going to let you know that they're in your systems. What they're doing is they know that when you apply for loans, when you apply for, you get your paycheck, your pay stubs, when you send your tax documents to your CPA, all that stuff is in your email. So it's a treasure trove of bank accounts and all kinds of personally identifiable information that when it goes into the wrong hands, they're going to essentially use it for nefarious purposes. So don't rely on your password. If there's one thing that you can do, go home, change it to something completely different, and just know that it's already out there. So whatever you can do, to protect
You
yourself.
should be writing that down. Just write that down.
And do not write your passwords down. That doesn't do anything. Do not make your passwords long. In fact, starting
Don't make
this
them
year,
long.
yeah. So I was gonna.
They just had us literally change
I know.
everything.
They don't know what they're doing.
Oh God, bless America.
So actually, starting this year, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, NIST, which is what directs how we are to behave in the digital world. So they have these sets of policies and processes that we follow. But they basically came out and said, this whole password thing is just stupid. Do not do this. Do not even change passwords, because what we would do is we would make you the computer user. We'd force you to change your password multiple times a year. Well, all you did was add a 1 or 2 to it, and now, or if you change the password, now it's just more passwords that are out there for the bad actors. So we just ask that you change it once, and then we never will ask you to change your password. But that's coming from an IT guy, because that is more, changing your password is less secure than keeping your password long, but also having a multi-factor authentication. And most of the time that is free. So if there's one advice, I'm not going to give you multiple because I got to charge you for that. But if there's
I try to get 2. I try to get 2 or 3.
Yeah, if there's one thing that you can do is just know that your passwords are useless.
I'm shocked. Like, let that set in. Okay.
Yeah, when they're talking to you about changing your password, just point at me.
Yeah. Just move along. Facial recognitions and
we're still so the facial recognition for the computers that exist today, it takes minutes. It takes a long time for them to infiltrate, and just the computing is not quite there. But with AI, so think about what's happening is you are taking those biometrics, you've got them in your phone, so hopefully Apple is secure, and then you've got them in Samsung, but now you've got them at your bank. You've got, you're doing all that, and that data is being stored somewhere. So once that data leaks, I'm sure it's already leaked from some of these organizations. Microsoft has been hit. Somehow they don't always disclose everything that gets out in the open. But every company, every organization tries to protect what their reputation by limiting what the public knows. But much of your data gets leaked out there, and a lot of it includes pertinent details, like security questions. So if you've had security questions like what is my favorite dog or whatever they are, those have been breached. They're out there, so do not rely on those.
I always lie on mine.
Well, yeah,
because it won't match up with my social media.
I won't remember the answer, so then I can't get into my account. But yeah,
you raised 4 children, you remember the lies.
Yeah. So I'm an Apple fanboy. That's my bias. I will go on record. I love Apple products because they're a closed system. So meaning if I, as a bad actor, I want to create Raj's app and have you download it and add nefarious code in there that sends me your credit card information or whatever I want, you cannot do that on Apple devices. However, you can do that on Google because Google does not go through all the lines of your code and they don't really care. So from my perspective, if you're using an Apple device, you're going to be more secure. However, there's always, Apple has had more what we call 0-day attacks in the last 2 years than I've ever seen in my life. The 0-day attacks are essentially when the person has no idea what is going on, when the vendor, the product has some exploits, has some vulnerabilities, and they haven't even figured it out, let alone addressed it or remediated it. So once the bad actors attack, that's how we are able to figure it out and then protect ourselves. So there's not really, my answer is not great because there's not really a safer solution. But what we do in my world in cybersecurity is we create a layered approach. So it's an onion for us. So if you get in, you're going to get in here, and we're going to essentially, block you in. You cannot access any other data, any other resources. But all that has to be done in a methodical way. There's no one product that you can buy. There's no antivirus that you can buy that is just going to all of a sudden make you secure. You have to actually, understand what good cyber hygiene is, and then it all goes back to training. There are so many things that come out on a monthly basis, that that most people don't even know about. So the biggest thing you could do is know that these things exist, and find an IT cybersecurity specialist like me to help you.
Right.
Shameless plug.
Shameless plug.
Yeah.
But that defines why he's sitting between our fire and our police on this panel today. Thank you. Yeah, apparently there's a request for a panel. They've got the message. Okay, so now can you pass it down to our fire chief? My question for you, I'm scared to ask any more questions today. I've been a little traumatized, but with all of the new expansion in fire prevention, adapting to the new emerging risks. So, I know there's some of our business owners are buying properties they're required to put in charging stations. There's different fire techniques for if that should become an issue. Can you talk to the increase emerging risks in urban density near commercial zones? Like, what should we be prepared for? How can we prevent it? How can we be of assistance?
Well, when you talk about emerging risk as far as EV vehicles,
That's just one example.
Fun fact, Kent, along the I-5 corridor, was the very first Tesla fire. And it happened when a piece of metal got kicked up by a Tesla car, punctured the battery, caught the car on fire. And so we have that claim to fame that we are the very first EV fire.
We are Kent, we are proud.
The nice thing about fire is eventually it all goes out, and copious amounts of water will take care of a lot of problems, including battery fires and things like that. What I've seen communities battle with is battery storage facilities. Covington just recently was able to block a large battery storage facility from going into their community. And that's a big unknown risk. We're not quite sure how to manage these as their communities are looking at them. I know Maple Valley has also had some interest in those. So as we look at these emerging risks, it's nice that the communities are getting involved to address them. One of the new things for the fire service, and I'm very concerned about firefighter safety, and a firefighter assumes a certain level of risk when you go into a burning building. And we know that we're risking our lives for a greater purpose to save somebody that's in there. But I don't believe firefighters should die a slow, painful death from cancers and on-the-job injuries. And we have been to 3 cancer funerals in the last month, and it's really heartbreaking. So what we are excited about is the way that we are going to clean equipment that firefighters use. So we have brought in, we are the first area to bring in liquid CO2 cleaning for firefighter protective equipment. So in the past, we have used water and a soap solution to clean firefighter protective gear. It removes about 50% of carcinogens, so the gear is never completely clean as a firefighter is wearing it. And I came from the age of, we didn't even wear air masks a lot of the time, because real firefighters, we don't wear air masks. And that has changed. We've learned the effects of all of that. This next phase removes 99.9% of carcinogens away from firefighter gear. It is the cleanest gear a firefighter will ever wear. And recently we had a large fire down in the south end of Kent at Binford Metals. You may have been aware of it. One of our firefighters fell in to an oil vat all the way up to his head, almost went completely under the oil. He came out, we cleaned his bunker gear using liquid CO2, and it completely renewed the equipment. So that was really our claim of, we would have normally disposed of this equipment. We would never used it again. Not only did it save taxpayer dollars when we're doing that, we know that our firefighters are the safest they will ever be in this equipment. So we like to balance exciting change in the fire service. We're very proud to say the fire service has 250 years of tradition, unimpeded by progress. And so we have learned that we need to embrace change. So as we partner with our communities more to look at the threats that they're facing. Those are just a few. We're also very concerned with our firefighter health and safety. We want our employees to come into the fire service healthy and leave healthy.
Thank you, thank you. So one of my jobs is to keep us on time, and so we're at time for this portion. But we didn't get to that many questions answered. But I know Chief Padilla often has coffee with the cop coming around every so often. Raj is available for consultations. Fire Chief is available. We're going to be here in the afternoon. But these are just the beginning. So keep the conversations going, and we want to make sure that we're engaged with our safety and security teams, and that we know that they're here for us. So this is part of the Kent Chamber. And so now we're going to move to the next thing. One question? Okay, you had a question, ma'am?
And I just want to start with the chief. I think this question is very telling, and I'd like to ask it. What keeps you up at night?
Well, for me, I've said it. It's that phone call at 2 a.m. that one of our firefighters is hurt at a scene, and so I believe in a strong training program. We are the regional provider for training for almost all of King County. We train 1,750 firefighters out of our facility up here in Kent, and that's everybody except for Seattle, Bellevue, and some other smaller agencies. So we have adopted that we are going to train firefighters in a consistent way, and everybody's going to be trained the same. And so really when that comes up, I look at what do we need to do to keep our firefighters safe, proficient, healthy, so that we can serve you the best. So I think that's every chief's fear, is that something's happened to one of their employees. And we have to balance strong training program with service so that doesn't happen.
Raj, what keeps you up at night?
Oh man, mostly video games, but there's a lot going on in the technology world, and what's really scary right now is how AI is being used criminally. So there's things that we're seeing that we were able to spot because we were there were breadcrumbs. I don't know what it's called in the criminal world, but there were clues that the humans would leave, and that was a lot easier for us to figure out what happened here. With AI, we are it's going to be interesting. We are very much behind in the technologies that some of these people are using, especially nation states. I don't know if you watch the news. There's not much that's going on right now, but President Trump did come out and acknowledge that yes, Russia is actively hacking, but his response to that was, well, we're doing this to them also, so whatever, right? But just know that, yeah, just know that this is not. When I was in college, I would get together with my buddies during spring break, winter break, and we would create. We called ourselves script kiddies. We would find scripts that were already written by somebody that knew what the heck they were doing, and then we would take them and run them on people's computers. We'd like delete stuff, and it was fun, well, now that game is a completely different game. It's no longer kids in college dorm rooms. It's nation states with unlimited budgets and with unlimited resources that just they're not using a laptop to hack. So earlier when we were talking about passwords, longer passwords, or doing biometrics, all that stuff, it's really designed to keep your kids out of your laptop and not really some of these organizations that are going at it. So as we move into 2026, and just like we did from 2024 to 2025, that is going to be the biggest worry that I have when it comes to AI and how we're integrating, how the bad actors are integrating the technology into real world.
All right, two things. One, as a father of 4 adults, they keep me up at night a lot. And then, like Chief Jones said, worrying about what's going on with our officers. We had an officer involved in a serious rollover collision last week. Last month we had our officers shot at. This is a very all too common thing, and so I worry about that. My commitment, as was mentioned by Chief Jones, is we want our people to go home to their families every night safely. We want everybody to go home to their families, everybody, right? And so that's a huge responsibility. For those that can see, I'm wearing a band on across my badge. The Spokane sergeant was killed just a few days ago in Spokane, clearing a roadway. So that's one. The other thing, and this is kind of lighthearted, but it's kind of not. We're really young right now. We've hired a lot of really talented new people, and I say this: 22-year-olds with guns and fast cars keep me up at night. So there you go. I'll keep it brief because I know we're short in time. It looks like we might have another question.
I just have a question for Chief. We did thank you for coming out to our Community Action Up meeting yesterday. We appreciate that and we look forward to more of that. But on another topic, with regards to diversity in the city where we all live, we are number 5 when it comes to diversity in the state of Washington. I wanted to know, what are your demographics as far as your officers are concerned, and with special regard to the BIPOC community. How many officers, if you can tell us that, are of other cultures or with respect to our diversity in the city? And are you continually working to make sure that it's equitable and the people are represented even in the departments, especially the police department? So that's what I'd like to know.
Sure. Thank you, Gwen. Appreciate that question. We didn't coordinate this because I'm really proud about what I'm about to tell you. And just a slight modification, we are 5th in the country. We're diversity. We rank in the top 5 of all cities in the country, diversity, 140 languages spoken in our school district, so hugely important. Our road to increasing the diverse numbers in our police department has not been a fast or easy one, but it's been a concerted, ongoing effort for many years. Gwen's been a part of this work back in the days when we had a race and equity board that guided the police on these issues. And so, Gwen, I haven't committed the numbers to memory, but so I'm going to speak kind of to general numbers, but I can get the actual data if you'd like it. We consistently are at about 30% underrepresented communities in our law enforcement department, our police department specifically. That is not enough if you're trying to get as representative as your community as you want it to be. But I will tell you, in comparison, most departments run somewhere in the single digits. Some of the better departments run at 19% diversity. Okay, in government business, and we have with the way that hiring is done through civil service, there are some challenges there. We have found really creative ways to overcome them. And one of the biggest things is that we took our best and brightest, got the old guy out of the way, and said, how are we going to reach these underreached communities? And we've done that. I will say that we looked a lot at what the military does, because when it comes to government, the military's got diversity down. They do it very well. And we've also looked at our colleges, our athletic programs at colleges. We went anywhere and everywhere that we could be. And then we had really smart young people probably put a lot of cyber risk at us by creating social media platforms on a very, very high level. So we've done that. I can tell you consistently from 22, 23, and 24, we average somewhere between low 40s to close to 50% of everybody we hire is from underrepresented communities. 50% almost in some cases. Again, it's almost like the crime reduction conversation. I'm not declaring victory, but I am saying that we are making significant progress, and progress that we hadn't seen 10 years ago, for sure. In terms of breakdown by race, Gwen, I'd have to pull those numbers to be accurate for you. But my message to you is we are continuing to work at this, and I hope to see those numbers improve even more.
Thank you. Let's give them a hand. Awesome. Well, thank you all so much. Thank you so much to Chief to Raj, to Chief. Thank you all so much for the information. We will definitely keep the conversation going. And again, we learn, right? And so it sounds like cybersecurity, we're at that point since we're all unsafe at this point. Sounds like we'll be doing a cybersecurity luncheon roundtable pretty soon, just to make sure that you all are prepared for what is next. So again, thank you so much. Thank you so much to Carmen Goers, Government Affairs Chair. If you want any information on how to join Government Affairs, definitely reach out to Carmen. And then thank you so much to Carmen Best and her team for being here today. We appreciate that inspiration about how we have to keep up with, as a leader, how we have to keep up with the times that are moving.